Well, hello. Welcome back. Or should I say, I'm back again. I know I keep taking these long, it seems like sabbaticals, and I promise you they're not. It's literally just a matter of getting in place here and actually doing the video. So, welcome you to I'm calling it daily encouragements. At this point, it should be weekly encouragements. But I do welcome you. Thank you for taking the time to join. If you're new to this or trying to remember what it is I'm aiming to do, is I'm trying my best to provide what I call daily encouragement, stuff to help you through your day. Hopefully it's something that you find encouraging and helpful to you. Currently we're going through the book of Galatians, and it's kind of difficult because what we're trying to do is an overview, just looking at it face value. What is this passage trying to say? But trying to do it in a way where it doesn't require a bunch of extra study, because I'm not looking to do a deep dive. Not at this point. Well, if I do something like that, what it will end up doing is causing these videos to be longer for shorter amount of content. You'd get like one verse or maybe two verses, and we'd be just telling a very long story. And so I'm not going to do that at the moment. Where we left off again was actually chapter 2. We stopped at verse 10 in our last video. So we're going to continue with verse 11. We're going to read all the way down through the rest of the chapter, verse 21, although I really don't believe we'll get there. All right, so verse 11 of chapter 2 of the book of Galatians says, "But when Peter was come to Antioch, I withstood him to the face, because he was to be blamed. For before that certain came from James, he did eat with the Gentiles. But when they were come, he withdrew and separated himself, fearing them which were of the circumcision. And the other Jews dissembled likewise with him, insomuch that Barnabas also was carried away with their dissimulation. But when I saw that they walked not uprightly according to the truth of the gospel, I said unto Peter before them all, If thou, being a Jew, livest after the manner of Gentiles, and not as do the Jews, why compellest thou the Gentiles to live as do the Jews? We who are Jews by nature, and not sinners of the Gentiles, knowing that a man is not justified by the works of the law, but by the faith of Jesus Christ. Even we have believed in Jesus Christ, that we might be justified by the faith of Christ, and not by the works of the law. For by the works of the law shall no flesh be justified. But if, while we seek to be justified by Christ, we ourselves also are found sinners, is therefore Christ the minister of sin? God forbid. For if I build again the things which I destroyed, I make myself a transgressor. For I, through the law, am dead to the law, that I might live unto God. I am crucified with Christ. Nevertheless I live, yet not I, but Christ liveth in me. And the life which I now live in the flesh, I live by the faith of the Son of God, who loved me and gave himself for me. I do not frustrate the grace of God, for if righteousness come by the law, then Christ is dead in vain." Now this is something that we end up seeing a lot referenced in Hebrews, the importance of the idea of what did Christ's death, burial, and resurrection mean to the Gentile and to the Jew, and honestly for us even today. And the passage starts off that when Peter came to Antioch, that he withstood him to the face because he was to be blamed. Paul had an issue with Peter. This is an example of how you should deal with a concern. You go to that person, and that's what the Bible teaches, that if that brother hath offended thee, go to him alone. If you can restore it there, that was gained a brother. I'm obviously paraphrasing. As we keep going, it says, for before that certain came from James, he did eat with the Gentiles. So in other words, there was a time where Peter had no issue eating with the Gentiles. And it says here, but when they came to meet with Paul, he withdrew and separated himself, fearing them which were of the circumcision. So now he was worried about what people were going to think, and what, at least that's how I look at it, what people were going to think about him, how they were going to look at him. How are you eating with the Jews? Or how are you eating with the Gentiles? You're a Jewish person. You're not supposed to be doing that. Verse 14 says, verse 13, and the other Jews dissembled likewise with them. In other words, they separated themselves, insomuch that Barnabas also was carried away with their dissimulation, with their thinking, their practicing, their play acting, or even another word is a hypocrisy. But when I saw that they walked not uprightly according to the truth of the gospel, I said unto Peter before them all, if thou being a Jew livest after the manner of the Gentiles, and not as do the Jews, why compellest thou the Gentiles to live as do the Jews? And this is a huge saying. He's calling him out for being a hypocrite. He's saying, if you don't live like a Jew, why are you trying to expect everyone to live like a Jew? Why are you judging them on their actions if you're not living according to it? There's a New Testament passage that says, you're worried about the speck in someone else's eye when you've got this huge beam in your own eye. And what it's saying is, take care of yourself first before you start pointing a finger at other people and playing judge, jury, and executioner. And that's what Paul's trying to point out here. And if I could pause for a moment here, I'm going to make an application. I don't believe this to be how this passage is teaching it, but I think it's a perfect application for us as Christians today, that we stop taking the opportunity to be judgmental towards other people. Understanding, you are not responsible to me for how you act. I'm responsible for how I act. And here's the thing, I'm responsible no matter how you act towards me, what you say about me, what you do, any of those things. I'm still responsible for my action. And the accountability is honestly to God. And if I do the works I'm supposed to do, if I take actions the way I'm supposed to according to God's word, then it really doesn't matter how people think. Again, the disclaimer is if I'm living according to God's word. See, Christ came and he died and was buried and rose again. And he made the law of none effect, and he gave the opportunity to live by grace. And Paul is saying, Peter, you're not living according to the law. You're living under grace. Why are you trying to make all these other people do the same thing? Again, this is how I'm reading this. This is how I'm seeing it. And we're going to go a little bit further here. We who are Jews by nature and not sinners of the Gentiles, knowing that a man is not justified by the works of the law, but by faith of Jesus Christ, even we have believed in Jesus Christ, that we might be justified by the faith of Christ and not by the works of the law. For by the works of the law shall no flesh be justified. The Bible tells us doing these works, whether it's the sacrificial system or any of those type activities, were not why people were saved. You got to hear that. That's not why people were saved. Romans tells us that Abraham believed and it was counted unto him for righteousness. His salvation was not based on the sacrificing of animals, but on the ultimate sacrifice made by Jesus Christ. And Paul is trying to get Peter and these others to understand that we live by grace and not under the law. Verse 17, but if while we seek to be justified by Christ, we ourselves also are found sinners, is therefore Christ the minister of sin? God forbid. You're still going to do wrong. You're still a sinner. It doesn't minimize what Christ did. If anything, it makes it more apparent why we needed him to do that. Verse 18, for if I build again the things which I destroyed, I make myself a transgressor. For I through the law am dead to the law, that I might live unto God. And one of the most popular verses you probably know, I am crucified with Christ. Nevertheless I live, yet not I, but Christ liveth in me. And the life which I now live in the flesh here on earth, I live by the faith of the Son of God, who loved me and gave himself for me. The whole reason I'm here, that I'm able to do a video, that I'm able to go and worship in church, that I'm able to try and live this Christian life, is because Jesus died for me. Verse 21, I do not frustrate the grace of God, for if righteousness come by the law, then Christ is dead in vain. In other words, if we still have to live by the law, then why did he die? What was the point of it all? It would make no sense. What is the encouragement for today? 1, understand your responsibility to live is according to God's standards, not man's standards. We don't live by the works that we do. Now, understand, the Bible does teach certain standards, certain actions that we should be doing, certain activities that we should be a part of and shouldn't be a part of. And should we do those? Yes. However, those don't determine my salvation. What it will do is show others, am I serious about my faith? Do I really truly believe in the words that I say when I'm reading his word, when I'm praying before God, when I'm singing songs and I'm worshiping God? Am I being true to my faith? Be encouraged of the fact that God is giving you the ability to do it. And then the second encouragement I'll give you is verse 20. Now you might say that doesn't sound like an encouragement, but think about it. I am crucified with Christ. I've got to understand, if I want to have any kind of victory, enjoyment, passion, and desire for living, is I need to realize I need to be crucified with him. What does that mean, crucified? That means the things that I want to do, the things that I want to see, me, that's all got to die. Because it says, I am crucified with Christ. Nevertheless, even though I'm crucified with him daily, nevertheless I live. Yet not I, but Christ liveth in me. And the life which I now live in the flesh, I live by the faith of the Son of God, who loved me and gave himself for me. The work of the Christian life is for us to trust in him for what he can do for us, to us, through us. Because if he died and we still had to live according to the law, and he rose again and we still have to live according to the law, then he died in vain. And we know that's not true. Thank you for taking the time to watch or listen, however it is that you're interacting with us today. I thank you, and I promise you I'm putting an effort into doing this more. I just got to find different times of the day to do it so I can get it done. But definitely come back next video where we go to chapter 3 of the book of Galatians and continue our piece by piece study in the book of Galatians. Until the next time, thank you so much for watching. Be encouraged.